So, today's topic, well, the topic I chose was brokenness because I just felt that God put in my heart that I need to speak about this because so many people are broken. So, I'm going to give you the definition of brokenness. So, the definition of brokenness, as it says in the dictionary, is a condition in which something is badly damaged and unable to continue or work correctly. Now, the Bible definition is what is being so crushed by sin and darkness of the world that we recognize that there is no place to turn but to God. Now, saying this, we're going to start off, it all starts off in Genesis of Adam and Eve, and where Eve ate the fruit and then we sinned and we became fallen and broken people. So now that you know the origin of how brokenness started and why we are fallen because of Adam and Eve, now we have to go back to someone that it's important in the Bible, so you just fast forward in the Bible, and we talk about David. And when you think of David, you think about how he was the perfect man. You think of how he wanted to run towards God's heart, and how he wanted to, he was like desiring God's heart. He was running after it. But what you don't see much about David is, well, you see in the Bible, he did a lot of mistakes. And in those mistakes, he was so convicted and he was so consumed by this sin that he had to ask God for forgiveness. So we're going to read a bit on David, and that starts in 2 Samuel 12. Oh, go back. Go back. So,
where?
back.
Whoa. Technical difficulties.
One more. One more. Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 types of brokenness. The first brokenness is brokenness that is a result of sin. Second one is emotional brokenness, and the third one is spiritual brokenness. So the first brokenness we're going to talk about is the result of sin, which we see in David, which we're going to read a bit on David. No, keep going. Oh yeah, I'll read that. Keep going. So we're in 2 Samuel chapter 12, and it says, and the Lord sent Nathan the prophet unto Daniel, and he came to him and said, there were 2 men in the sea. And in this part, he just he's giving like a metaphor, talking to David and explaining to him like what he did was wrong. And then Nathan says to David, thou art the man, thus said the Lord of Israel, anointed him king over Israel, and delivered thee unto the hand of Saul, and gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wife into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and Judah. And if there be too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord to do such evil in sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain with the sword of the children of Ammon. And now therefore the sword shall never depart from thy house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah to be thy wife. And basically, Nathan is basically convicting David, and saying all these things to him because the Lord had shown Nathan what he had done, because David was trying to do this on secret, He thought that no one was going to see him. He didn't think that the Lord was going to see him. So he went and he did it secretly, and he didn't think much of it, because what he did was that he put Uriah in the front of the lines of the war so that he would get killed first. And then because he was so clouded by his judgment, so clouded by the lust that he wanted his wife, and he saw the beauty of the wife, he saw all this, and he wanted his wife. So as king, he thought, oh, I could just get away with this and nothing will happen, So he went and he put Uriah in front of the lions, and he got him killed. He knew that he was going to get killed. He didn't do it on purpose. He did it on purpose. So we see this, and then he gets convicted by Nathan. He gets convicted by Nathan, and David at this point is just like, he just says that, all that he says to him is that, he's just basically saying that, oh my gosh, where is it? He just says that he's done evil before the Lord. And after this, after a while, you see that in Psalms 51. In Psalms 51, David goes and he does this whole song and he does this whole thing towards the Lord and saying how he was so convicted and how he wants him to be cleansed and how he wants to make everything right with the Lord, because he's the one that knew that, he was so torn up and so broken by his sin that he just started to make this whole song, and he was just convicted, and he's just like, I want a clean heart. I want to go back to you. I want to be that man that says that I'm going after your heart. So after this, he basically does the song, and then God forgives him, but with of course God is gonna punish him, but he like eventually forgives him because our God is a forgiving God. So, and then if you go back, well, I'll just tell you, it is. Bless you.
Is it?
It's Ezekiel. It's Ezekiel 34:16, and God says that I will seek which was lost and bring back that was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. So God is saying in this verse that He's just saying that if you're lost, that God's going to bring you back eventually. That even all the sin that you've done, He's going to bring you back to Him, and He's going to fix all that was broken. So then, okay, now we're going to talk about emotional brokenness. And for me, when I think of emotional brokenness, I think it's a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of anxiety, sadness. It's like all your emotions that how you feel when you're broken, and depression, shame, all these types of brokenness lead to that. So maybe your brokenness starts with your family. Maybe it starts with that mother that wasn't there. Maybe that father that wasn't there in your life. And maybe you just feel that emptiness of not having them, of not having that person in your life, to have in your heart. So maybe your heart feels empty. And then what I'm saying here is that God sees your heart. He sees how you are. He sees that you're broken. He sees that you're empty, and He sees how you feel in life. He sees when you're crying alone. He sees when you're sad in school and people are asking you what's wrong, and you can't tell them because it's just something personal. He sees that, and He wants to bring you to Him. God sees your pain because He's telling you that all people here in this room, all people in the world are broken, and all those broken people break their children, and those children are broken by their parents, and the cycle just keeps going on. But God is telling you that He wants to break that cycle, and He wants to start it with you. He wants to start that new generation, that new cycle with you. He wants you to be that parent that can be not perfect, but just how God will want you to be that parent for your child, And God's telling you, He's telling you that He wants you to come to Him. He doesn't want you to go to someone else because He's right there standing. He's just waiting for you to come into His arms and just give you all that love, that He can give you so much love and so much happiness that if you just come to Him, that He will just give it to you. Because this world is not going to satisfy your heart. Nothing in this world that you find is going to satisfy your heart, And then, but the thing with brokenness is that God uses that brokenness. He sees when you have brokenness, there's always that light in the end of the tunnel. There's always that light that God is going to use that brokenness. He might use it to testify, to use your testimony to help others so that they could see the light. In Psalms 147:3, it says that He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He's not going to leave you broken. He's going to fix you. And he's gonna go to you, and He might send a person. You might find it in Himself. He wants you to be brokenhearted. Means that you're so broken that all you have to do is to turn to Him and give your worries to Him. Because the more that you struggle, the more that you just keep it in you, it's not gonna help. You have to turn to Him in order to be released and to feel happiness, to feel all the pleasures of the world, pleasures in Him and not in the world. So that's emotional brokenness. And the last one we're going to talk about is spiritual brokenness. So spiritual brokenness is when your spirit is not truly aligned to God. God should be the number one thing that you have in your life. That should be the number one thing, more than your family, more than your friends, more than that person you love, more than your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife. God should be the number one priority in your life. Now, saying that we're gonna go on David's son. Because remember, David had sinned and had been with that woman that he took from the guy. So with that, the first child that he had died because God told me that was his punishment for doing that. And so then he had Solomon. Now, Solomon was a king after David, and God had talked to Solomon and told him what he wanted. And Solomon asked for all the wisdom and all the riches of the world. And it starts in 1 Kings, and the 1 Kings 11 is signed there. It says that now this at first when God gave him all this riches and all this wisdom, he had told Solomon that if you just go close to near me and see me, then you'll be fine, and then you'll have all these riches in the world. So, but the thing with Solomon is that he loved a bunch of foreign women, and that he was drawing away towards the Lord. And with this, he had about like 700 wives and about like 300 concubines, which was a lot. And that all those wives and all those people started to turn him away from God. So Solomon lived most of his life with his wives and turning away from God. But there was a point where Solomon, in the end of his life, in Ecclesiastes, he says, so, he says that he just basically explains his life, and that he says that I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all those over Jerusalem before me, and my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge, and I have applied my heart to know wisdom and know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is but a striving after me, for in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. And then it says in Ecclesiastes 2, the next one. And then he starts to explain, so I turn to consider wisdom and madness and folly, for what can men do who come after the king? Only what he already had been done. And then I saw that there's more gain in wisdom than in folly, and there is more gain in light than in darkness. He's just explaining that after all the wives that he had, all the wealth, he basically goes back to God, because he knows that all of that wasn't as important of all the wisdom and knowledge and all of that God gave him. Like, God was much more important than all of that he had. So with this, I'm just saying that God wants you to be aligned with him. He wants you to be more closer to him. He wants you to turn to him when there is darkness. He wants you to go into the light and not lead into that path of darkness, of evil. And he wants you to stray. He doesn't want you to stray with him. He wants you to come back to him. And then the last thing I'm going to leave you off with is Proverbs 3, 5, 6. And it's saying, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all the ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. And that is the end of my lesson. So just trust in God, and trust in him that all that brokenness that you have, he has a purpose for it. He's not going to leave you astray. He's not going to let you go through all that trouble just so that you can just, he's not going to do it. So that's it.